As you probably know, I'm a huge cat lover. You might not know, though, that I actually volunteer at one of our local cat shelters every Friday morning. It's a really fun way for me to give back to the community. I essentially spend the whole morning hanging out with cats, processing adoptions, other stuff like that. In addition to this being a shelter and having lots of cute cats that are adoptable, we also have some community programs. One of them is the Lost and Found Cats program. So essentially, if you live in Santa Barbara, you lose your cat, it gets out, you can call us. We'll take down all the information and we'll save that information. Every time a new cat comes in, we'll check and see if the cat matches up with any of the cats that have been called in. And if so, we'll give you a call back and let you know. It's a really cool program. It's sad to see, how many missing cats there are. I never knew until I started working here that there were so many missing cats in just our small community alone. Currently, we store all of our data in Excel spreadsheets. So this right here is one of our actual spreadsheets. This is our current lost cats. So all the lost cats right now are in here right now. As you can see, it's a lot. We have specific people whose jobs it is to know basically all the cats on here and check the new arrivals to see if any of them match up. This, of course, is a lot of work, so I decided for my CS263 project that I would automate this. So this is a view of Find My Fluffy. It's essentially an online database for lost and found cats. So when you first go to findmyfluffy.appspot.com, you'll be prompted with two boxes. One is a box for entering information regarding a lost cat, and the other is for entering information for a found cat. When a lost cat or a found cat is submitted, it gets stored into my data store. So let's just go ahead and take a look at my console right now. So this is my console for this project on Google App Engine. This is my storage view. So you can see right now there's nothing in my data store. Let's go back to Find My Fluffy. So now let's enter in a cat. So let's say I lost my cat Jemima. I can go ahead and type in her information. Jemima, she's microchipped, she's 8, so on, she's a long hair. Let's say Galita, my name, and a way to contact me. Cool, so there's that. Now when I click submit, a couple things are happening behind the scenes when I do this. I'll talk about those in a little bit, but let's first just look at what happened. So a new page comes up and it will list potential matches. Right now there are none, which makes sense because there was nothing in my data store. There's also some general tips for finding a lost cat. I'm hoping people will find these useful. So now let's just really quickly go look at the developer's console. So let's go ahead and reload this page. See here, there's a lost cat entity, and in this lost cat entity table, we can see that Jemima is here. So Jemima, domestic long hair, 8. She is microchipped. She's a female. There's my contact name. There's my contact info. So you can see got added the data store correctly, which is good. So now let's go back to the Find My Fluffy app. So let's go ahead and enter in a found cat. I'll use the same information we used last time to make sure we get a match. So Jemima, she's microchipped, etc. Vested long hair, tuxedo. And then I'll just use the same contact info again. And now I'll go ahead and submit. Again, a couple things happen there that I'll talk about in a little bit. But first, let's just look at this page. So you can see we have a potential match, which makes sense. We just entered this match as a lost cat, and we just entered the same information as a found cat, so that comes up as a potential match. And there it is displayed. There's also some general suggestions for found cats. So now let's go ahead and look at our developer's console again. So this was that lost cat entity that we just talked about. Let's go ahead and reload the page. And now you can see we have both lost cat and found cat entities. So let's go ahead and go back to the AppSpot engine page. So let's go back home. There we go. So on this page, remember that there's these two forms. Let's talk about what happens when we click submit on one of these forms. I'm going to go ahead and pull up my project in Eclipse. And this index.jsp file, this is the file that loads when you first load our page. So if I scroll down to the bottom, you can see here's all the form information. So this is for the lost cat form. This is for the found cat form. Let's look at the lost cat form specifically. So this is the button that is clicked when you submit. And if we go up to our document ready function here, when this submit lost button is clicked, a couple things happen. First thing that happens, and I'll show you this in a little bit, it only goes through if all the stuff has been filled in. So we have a couple of alerts here. And if everything is filled in, that means we want to submit the information. So two functions are called. Let's talk about this one first, submit JSON loss form. So this function takes everything in that loss form and serializes it into a JSON object, which I then use REST post to send to another servlet. Let's go ahead and look at this servlet that's mapped to this URL. So if I hide this and then go to add lost entry servlet, this is the Java code that takes that JSON object, you can see here, from the REST post. It takes that and then it does a couple things. It first converts it to a JSON object. So that's what this is doing here. And then it sets up some information about all the different parts of the cat. And then we add it to the task queue. So right here we have this queue and we add everything to here. So I decided to use task queue for this for a couple of reasons. One, it was a requirement for the project, but two, more importantly, when a user submits information about their lost cat, I want my App Engine project to spend that time looking for matches. I don't want it to spend the time adding this cat to my data store. So instead I put that in a task queue. This task queue relies on this lost cat adder. So let's take a look at that. So as you can see here, this will take all that information, create this lost cat entity based on a key based on the lost cat's name, set all those properties, and then add it to the data store. So this right here is where the lost cat information is added into our data store. So now let's go back to that JSP file. So like I said, when we click that button that submits the last cat information, it did two things. I just showed you the first thing it does. And then here's the second thing. It calls find match lost. So let's go ahead and find that in here. So here's our find match lost function. So this is also using the REST API, specifically using get this time. So it sends all the information about the cat, the name, the chip, all that kind of stuff. And then it will get stuff back from the servlet matched to this matches lost. So let's go ahead and look at that. So here's our match lost servlet. Again, this is all using REST get. So it gets everything. And then we make a bunch of filters. So the way my matching algorithm currently works is out of all the entries that you put in, the name, whether or not the cat is microchipped, its gender, its breed, its color, and the area it's found, if any of those three match another cat, then we consider that a match. So I have a lot of filters on here to basically get all three combinations. And I use a composite filter and OR all of those. Once I have that filter, I run this query. And then once I have everything from the data store that could be a potential match based off of this query, I then convert that query, the objects returned from that query, into first a JSON, then a JSON object. So here, that's the response going back to the JSP page. Let me pull that up again. And it does all this formatting for us. So it calls this parse JSON info, which does a lot of formatting, does all this stuff here. And that's how it comes out looking pretty on the website. So when you submit a cat that you found, it does something really similar. There's another function based on clicking this submit found button, and they're basically these two functions that I already showed you, just for found cats. So let's go back to our website here. So on the website, I have a super secret admin page at admin.jsp. So on this page, you can upload CSV files that have lost cat information and found cat information. So you first make a CSV file based on this formatting that I give you here. When you do that, you can then upload the file and then it'll automatically add everything into the data store for you. So let's go ahead and look at one of these files. Here's all my data for this project. I'll show you the Excel sheet first. So let's look at the lost cats Excel sheet. So there we go. Here's a bunch of lost cats. You can see there's a lot of them. And again, this is the original stuff from the shelter. I did change the owner names and phone numbers for the purposes of this demo. And when I exported that into a CSV file, I got this. So again, you know, as long as you follow the format that's on the website, you can do this with any information. So let's go ahead and upload this lost cat CSV file. So I go here, I go to choose file. Here's lostcats.csv, choose that. Now I'll click submit. So a couple things are happening here. I'll show you in a minute. This does take a little bit of time. As you saw, that CSV file was quite large. There were over 1,000 entries in it. So depending on how Google App Engine is doing that day, it might take a while. So here's a little confirmation page that we get after the file has been uploaded. It says, thanks for the info regarding DC and the other kitties. So DC was actually the first cat in this CSV file. So if we look at this file, you can see right here, that's DC. So that's the first cat in the CSV file. So that's kind of there just to confirm that everything was parsed correctly and that all the right data is there. We also print out the file name here in case you ever want to refer to it later. You can go back to the admin page. So again, we just uploaded a bunch of lost cats into our data store. So let's go back to our console again. So these were the found cats from before. Now let's look at the lost cats. As you can see, there's a lot more lost cats now. So again, this was all from that upload we just did. So now let's go back to our website and let's enter in information about a found cat again. So let's say we found a cat named Felix. He's 2, he's a male, domestic short hair. Let's say he's a black cat. Maybe we found him around City College. I'll put in my name, my contact info. Now let's see if we get more matches this time. Sure enough, now we get 5 matches. So you can see here, here's a cat here that is a potential match. It matched because the sex, the age, the breed, and the color are all the same. So remember that query that we do for finding matches, the way it works is if any 3 of these match, it will come back as a potential match. So here's a couple of potential matches for what we just entered. So let's go back to that admin page we were talking about. I also prepared a found cats CSV file. So again, any CSV file, as long as it's in this order, in that format. So choose file, and this is the found cats CSV, and we'll upload that one. So similar confirmation page. Thanks for the info regarding the cat name, the first one there, and then what Google App Engine saved the file as. You can go back. So let's go back to our developers console. So if we go back here, again, these were all the lost cats. Let's look at the found cats now. So you can see there's a lot more found cats, and this is because we just uploaded all of them using that CSV file. So let's go ahead and go back into the Eclipse project and see what's happening when we do these uploads. So this was all done on this admin.jsp file. So when we click that button where we upload a lost form CVS file right here, calls the blobstore service. So this is where I'm using blobstore in my project. I decided to use blobstore here since these files can be quite big. Like I said, the one lost cat file has over 1,000 entries, and at a bigger shelter there could be a lot more. So it's using blobstore to get that CSV file onto the server. And let's go ahead and look at this upload lost servlet. As you can see, this has all the blobstore services in it. So we retrieve that file from our blobstore, and then we use that information to parse everything, essentially line by line in the CSV file here in this for loop. And then eventually we'll add into our data store. So this add lost cat entry is another file on here. It takes parameters including the name, the sex, the breed, the color, all that kind of stuff of the cat, and then adds everything properly to our data store. So a couple things happen when we upload that file. We create a blobstore for it. So it's uploaded via blobstore. And then we get that blobstore file and we parse it. And for each line parsed on it, that means for each cat, we then add that cat into our data store. You can also see here that there's some memcache info going on. So this is how I display the name of the first cat that shows up on that file. Instead of having to write the information of the data store and then get it back, I instead just use memcache to remember what the first name of the first cat was. Then you see there's also redirect here. Now this redirect goes to this servlet, this serve.java, and this is using Jersey. So it takes in as parameter the blob key. You can see here, here's the blob key. And then using memcache to get that first name of the cat, it then returns this confirmation message. I did use Selenium for some testing, so let me pull that up right now. So like I said earlier, this submit button should only work if you enter all this information. So I have a couple tests in Selenium. Most of them are just checking to see whether or not the alerts are working correctly if you don't enter everything. So let's go ahead and run one of these tests. So this one will enter a couple of things, but it won't select one of these radio buttons. So let's go ahead and run it, see what happens. So open the page, there's the pet name, age, so on. And then on submit, an alert comes up and it passed. So over here, we do this ourselves. We enter name, we enter an age, we enter everything else, just not the sex. We'll see, sure enough, we get this alert window, which is the same alert window that Selenium was checking for. This concludes my demo of Find My Fluffy. In the future, I'd like to add the option for users to upload photos of their cats and potentially use that information to make a flyer for them. But I think this is pretty cool as is, so I hope you enjoyed it as well. Thank you.